Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of
Planes, Trains, and Comic Books.
Today, we are reading Appleseed as part of our Manga March Madness, as John coined it. And this was a request by one of our Patreon members. So, Kalia, this one's for you, and hope you enjoy it. We read Ghost in the Shell a couple months ago, and that's actually by the same creator as this, so Shiro Masamune, and I gotta say, like, I love his artwork. His artwork's great. He draws the hell out of mechs and like cool tech stuff. So,
Oh yeah, all his cyberpunk stuff is very cool.
yeah, but I will say, thankfully, this is a bit more easy to wrap your head around. At least this volume is than Ghost in the Shell was. But Ghost in the Shell was a lot longer. They got a lot more in depth about the theories and philosophy of it and everything. So maybe this will get crazier as it gets more in depth. But
I'm sure it will, because that's one thing we talk about every time there's a manga. It's like you feel like we have a base story, and then they have to throw in like an extra, like, oh, it's a love story between aliens and humans, and also the aliens are secretly robots from the future and are zombies. Yeah, we find that out later, so it's like, oh, okay.
yeah, they're demons. They're demon zombies, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I like that this starts off more of just like, it's like a two buddy.
It's a buddy cop. It's a buddy cop.
Buddy cop thing.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I like it. I like the premise of this. It was a lot more. It eased you in. No, I mean, I guess Ghost in the Shell did the same thing, where they kind of eased you into the world, and it took like 9 volumes, or 9 chapters. There you go, to get into the hard sci-fi tech stuff. But this, I guess, this world is a little bit more simpler, or at least this story is a little bit more simple. At least what we've read so far. And so it didn't need all that build up. It just it has one chapter of build up, and then we kind of throw in us into this world, but we're like following the main characters who are also thrown into the world. So we're not catching up by ourselves. We're catching up with the main characters. So it kind of flows better, I think, than Ghost in the Shell, which was like, you as the reader are the one catching up, and no one's holding your hand with anything. So we start off with the first page basically being like, and the world is fucked. We had a world war, and basically no nukes this time, but they didn't need nukes. They still murdered everybody, and the earth became a quieter place. I thought that was funny. Yeah, but basically just, conflict spread, escalating wars, new nations deposed old nations, and took power and all this stuff. So we are in Japan in this, I believe, right? I mean, like, I think most of these mangas take place in Japan, but it's unrecognizable because all the cities are, totally broken down and collapsed and wrecked and everything. And we start off in one of these collapsed cities with our main character, who's named Duenan. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. I watched a little bit of the anime to try to make sure I said it at least somewhat right. But did you have problems with the names of this, John?
I kind of just said it to myself a couple times, like, how would this probably be pronounced? So it's like Duenan.
I was like Duenan. All right, we're doing Duenan. But then in the anime they're like Dunan, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going with that. That's easier. But I still might say Duenan, so apologize if I go back and forth on that.
You could, we could do D.
No, it's fine. It's fine. She's easy enough now. It's one of the two. And then her and her hetero life mate, I don't know, her cyborg life mate.
Cyborg life mate.
Yeah, Briareos is his name. He's like a cyborg who I don't know how much human, or if he does have any human in him, or if he's just straight cyborg. I couldn't tell. Did you ever pick up on that?
No, I actually looked really carefully to see if like there was something where they said like, do you remember on that previous mission where you had something blown off and you became, what you are today or something? And I, at least in this first volume, we did not get that at all. So as of right now, he's just like the cyborg partner she had.
Yeah, he's just a robot. So they live in this, broken down, destroyed world, but they're making it. I guess it's good that he's a robot because Briareos can go out, or Briareos can go out and like hunt for food and stuff, or not hunt, but like search for food and supplies, and he's not going to get poisoned by, like, they said like some of the food that he got had like poison from sarin, but like it's old. I'm sure the sarin's worn off by now. Like, so stuff like that. I guess there was some kind of bio war, where they're using biochemical weapons on the populations. So no nukes,
Nice.
but just biochemical weapons.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's fine. So they seem to be fine. They're living in their little house. Everything's going good. We don't really know anything about them as far as like how they got here or why they're here, living by themselves in this city. But as they're like chilling, they pick up on, or we see, I don't know if they pick up on it, but someone starts making noise outside, and we see this like mech suit running, and it looks like it's running straight for their house, but it also looks kind of injured potentially, like it's fallen against the wall and stuff as it's going up to their house. And Duenan is like very aware of her surroundings, so she hears this noise, and then she immediately pulls out a gun on, and then like Briareos goes around. I want to say Briareos like Buenos Aires or something, but Briareos goes around and like flanks this mech suit person, and they both have guns on them. Then the mechs, they shoot it, and like the mech suit opens up, and it turns out there's a woman inside, and also there's like the mech suit, or the person has a picture of them from like a satellite image. So she's been sent here for some reason to find Duenan and Briareos. So they don't know why, no idea. But as they try to ask some questions, all of a sudden there's some explosions going on outside, elsewhere, and they hear that, and it turns out that this person who's named Atomi, that was in this mech suit, she, while trying to find them, was spotted by terrorists, they call them, that are like humans that have mech suits of their own, and also tanks and shit. So they have some pretty hardcore artillery in tank form that they're driving around trying to find Hitomi, and Duenan handcuffs Hitomi in their room and says like, "You stay here, Briareos, come with me, and we'll like take these fuckers out." So they get suited up. They go out to the streets, and we kind of see how they work. Where like, obviously Duenan can't really fly or anything. She's like a regular human. So Briareos, who's got his android body or whatever, I don't, like, robot body, we'll say, he's got more like skill and agility. He can like jump off buildings and do crazy acrobatics and stuff. So
It looks like he's got like some kind of like jet stabilizers or something.
yeah, and he looks like he's got big bunny ears. But is that what you're talking about? Those like,
Oh no, because it looked like when he went to like jump off a building and land, like maybe he had some like air or some
oh
kind of
yeah, like
light
pneumatic
things
pneumatic
that
like landing gear kind of things that's
yeah
in his feet.
yeah
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
he doesn't like
shatter his legs.
yeah or her
Or her, yeah. So they go into like formation fighting, or like their little back and forth fighting these terrorists that are out looking for Hitomi. And so we don't really know why these guys want anybody, but basically there's a big fight. Hitomi actually breaks out and is able to like help a little bit in this fight, but we don't know who these guys are other than they're trying to attack Hitomi, and our guys, Duenan and Briareos, are like just trying to protect Hitomi just because. They're like, we don't know why you're trying to kill her. She doesn't seem super dangerous necessarily. She didn't have a weapon or anything when she came to their door, other than the mech suit, which I guess maybe has weapons on it. But they basically take out all these guys, and I liked the way that they do it. Like, Duenan gets in a jeep and just starts fucking like leading people away from where they were. Like, they say, oh, well, they start chasing her, being like, oh, we'll get her, and then she like has a shotgun and she just starts blowing them away as she's driving, which I was like, man, that car's got really stable steering, because she would just like turn around and shoot as the car is driving the other way and they're behind her. So, but she is nailing all of them and killing them. And yeah, basically they just own these bad guys, or these terrorists, as they call them later on. And then Duenan and Briareos get taken by Hitomi, and we don't know who really Hitomi works for yet or anything, but she's just like, oh, I'm going to take you out of this city and back to the city of Olympus. And so they get on a helicopter and they fly over there. And this just moves, right? This doesn't explain anything. And that was like, it's kind of a comic thing, right? Like, there are definitely comics in America, like American comics, that have like this quick paced storytelling as well, where they don't really go into detail of like the conversation of convincing them to go, or like why they should go, or like, who Hitomi is or anything. It's just, you go for it. Like we just cut to the page and they're already there,
Yeah. The only thing we get is that I guess there is some kind of like unified central management bureau. They also call Aegis.
Yeah.
Aegis. Yeah. So, and I guess they're also like centered in Olympus City.
Yeah. And so, I liked this as Hitomi's like explaining Olympus, and basically it's like a utopia. Like, everybody here is taken care of. It's all perfect. There's nothing wrong. Also, I thought the design of a lot of the buildings were very Blade Runner. Like, I could totally, like, there's that pyramid in Blade Runner at the beginning when they're going through the city, and I was like, oh yeah, that kind of looks like these giant, like half moon buildings that they have, and those are like giant apartment buildings, like almost like mega cities. Like those like mega apartments in mega cities in Judge Dredd.
Yeah, Mega City 1.
Thousands of people that live in one building, and so, yeah, it's kind of like that, where all these people live here, the government provides for them, and everybody's happy. Except the one line I loved was, let me see if I can find it. Basically, Hitomi saying like, oh yeah, like the world works like this now. Like, basically, the governments function under Olympus, but they're free. They're free to do what they want, except their economy and their like their output is controlled by Olympus. But other than that, they're free. I'm like, so they're not free. Like if a country can't control like what they make and what they export, that's kind of what that's the GDP of the country.
It's a different form of freedom, is what they're trying to say.
Yeah, it's a fascist form. It's a free fascist society. I don't know what is hard to understand about that. But yeah, basically they're like, everything's great here. Everybody's free, except, there are definite rules. This is very much like Futurama society, where like everybody just falls in line with something, like the government's like, you are a pizza delivery guy, right? Like you get told what you're going to do. And so that's your job now, because that's what you fall in line in society. So, I mean, it looks like they give you some kind of choice. It's kind of like when you have to go to school as a kid, but you're allowed to pick your classes, kind of, like they let you think you have freedom in picking your classes, but you definitely have to take a math and a science. You can't just not take those things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but you can pick which time period you want of that math and science. So that's fun, right? Isn't that fun? That's free. We're all free there. So, yeah, I just thought it was funny the way that they're like, yeah, this society is basically free and everything's perfect, except it's not. And so, so yeah, then we kind of get introduced as our main characters are being like introduced to the city. We do meets. We cut to like the I don't know if she's like the president or it's a high up person in government. Her name's Athena, which is very apropos for Olympus being the name of this city. And or actually, is Olympus the name of the city or is it the name of the government or like the country?
It's a city. It's Olympus City.
Okay. I was like, because they do refer to Olympus as kind of like the government body as well, or at least I thought they did. Maybe they're saying like in Olympus, there's like we are the ruling government body, like these old guys that run it, you know. So I always assumed they were Olympus, also, you know. It'd be like we live in America, but the government's called America too, like kind of. Outside of the U.S., they say America did this, but they're talking about the government of America, not Americans or something, you know?
I didn't catch up on that. The only thing because like Athena talks about reporting to the bureau chief. They talk about the bureau chief several times, which is the Central Management Bureau, the AEGIS. So
nothing says freedom like the Central Management Bureau. It's very like 1984 or whatever. But yeah, we meet her, and it's obviously by the way that they draw her that she's not a good person. Like she has the constant like angry face, or at least it kind of looks like that.
Yeah, she's constant angry and almost like she has a shadow kind of like come over her face at the end of every panel.
Yes, yeah, very much so. But we see that once Duenan and Briareos land, they had to go to like quarantine because they're from like the Badlands on the outside. So they went through quarantine, and this was like one of my favorite parts. Duenan is like she doesn't fuck around, and she's a 2A girl, all right? She is a fan of guns and gun items. So like or weapons in general, I should say. So like she's like sitting outside of the steps of quarantine where they stripped her of everything that they don't allow in this free society. And part of that is like guns and weapons and shit. So she's sitting out on this step, and then she pulls out her gun and is like wiping it off, and Briareos is like, what the hell? She's like, oh yeah, I snuck this in. Don't worry about it. Like, they didn't really check too good or whatever. And then like she pulls out a knife and she's like, oh yeah, I hid this in the bushes before we went in. So now I got this too. And she's like, I just can't like feel comfortable without a gun on my hip. I'm like, I like this girl. I like the way that she thinks. But as they're sitting there, Hitomi comes up on her motorcycle and she's like, oh, you guys can stay with me. But also we should say that when Athena was like introduced, the government chick, she's like, she was talking about Hitomi, and she was saying like, oh, and she's applied for, to have these two, outsiders at her place. What did they call them? Briareos and Duenan. They had like some kind of name for like outsiders or whatever. I don't remember what it was. But she was like, Athena was like, yeah, so she's trying to apply to have them stay at her place, and I guess we'll let them do it. Yeah. But I'm not. Well, we don't like it.
They said she had applied for landmates for them, and that's the first time we hear that. And but the landmates, that's just their name for the mechs.
That's what it was. Okay, yeah, landmates. But she also like lets them stay at her apartment or whatever. I see. At the beginning of this, I got confused because I didn't know that landmates was the mech suits or whatever. And so I thought, oh, landmates like flatmates or whatever, you know, like oh, they live in the same house or whatever. So that's why I got confused. Okay, you're right, because later on they say landmates, and I knew that they were talking about the mech suits because they had already explained that. But I guess when I first read this, I did not pick up on that and didn't remember that. So, but basically, she's like, Hitomi's like, yeah, I'll get you, you know, settled up at my house, and like, oh, let's stop at this. This like mech motor mechanic shop or whatever. And so Hitomi goes to talk to this guy named Yoshi, and she introduces Duenan to him, and immediately, like, I don't know if Yoshi is like a salesperson because he is doing mechanics work, but basically he's like, oh, do you want to see the new brochure for all the new mechs? And Dunan's like, hell yeah, I do. And then she like sees the whole catalog, and like immediately it's like me with like a tool brochure or something. I'm like in my head, I'm like, I want that and that and that. But this is where they kind of explain to the reader what mech suits are and what kind they are and all this. So, and how they work. So it's like, it's a good way to introduce that because it doesn't sound like exposition. But you didn't think this was like too talky, did you?
No, not at all. Like he talked about he's building one of his own, obviously, and then he's like, oh, but these are like, here we'll show you like the floor models, and then yeah, he's like, this is the top of the line or whatever, or most anthropomorphic or whatever.
Yes. Now I'm gonna ask you this, John. What is the name? How do you pronounce the name of the new SWAT mech, which is the most anthropomorphic one? How do you pronounce that?
Googies.
Googies.
That's not.
I'm gonna go with Googies.
It could be, I don't know.
It's either Googies or Googies. That's officially what either name is. Now, please correct us in the comments or in Patreon or whatever if you guys are aware of how to pronounce the name of these mechs, these specific mechs. But God, I could not figure out how to pronounce it. I was like Guges, Googes,
or could be Guggies.
Yeah, Guggies. Well, there's an E there, right? So you think it would be Goo. Gez.
Yeah.
Googes. Googies. Googes. I don't know. Tell us what it is, please. Because basically after that, I was just like, mech suit. I don't want to have to fight this in my head every time I look at this word. So, but they specifically are like, yeah, that's the like top of the line anthropomorphic one. It's like the most robust and like crazy. And like, as he's talking about it, you definitely see Duenan like going over in her head like, how could I possibly afford this fucking thing? And that was the other thing, like, they don't have any money. They just got here and they don't have jobs. So how the fuck was she going to buy this thing? But yeah, she just keeps that information in that catalog in the background, just in the back of her mind. But yeah, so then we cut to them at Hitomi's house and seems like they're working out fine. I don't know. There wasn't anything weird about Hitomi at first, right? Like, she just seems pretty normal. Other than there was a weird scene where she gets super drunk with a bunch of friends, and Duenan goes to take a shower, and Hitomi just comes in the middle of her shower, and they're both naked in the shower, and Dunan's like, what the fuck? I'm taking a shower. And Hitomi is like falling all over her and passes out on the ground. So like, I didn't know why that happened. Did you know why? Other than she was drunk?
No. I mean, like, yeah, that was the only thing you was gonna say. You said there was nothing weird. It was like, hey, what about the shower scene?
Yeah,
yeah.
Shower scene was weird, but not like, I mean, it was only weird because she was naked. If she had come in clothed and just fallen on top of Duenan naked or whatever, like, okay, like, yeah, sure, whatever. She's super drunk. But then, like, it seemed like maybe Hitomi was trying to make it pass or something, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, it was hard to tell because she starts off like, hey, I basically starting to say like, I'll scrub your back, you scrub mine, and then she kind of falls on her. But then they do, like you said, they show the.
I will say, I think like back scrubbing is a thing that they do for each other in Japan. Maybe, I don't know. That might be a cultural thing, not like, because over here, if you say that means we're gonna fuck. Like, but I don't know if that means the same thing over there. So. That might be a cultural thing. Like, oh, I'll wash your back. It's like, okay, that's normal. But I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anybody who knows, let us know. Once again, we do not know all these things. So, but then after that weird scene, we are introduced to, we're going to call them the Elders of Olympus. They're like, it's almost like, it reminded me, and you're going to like this, John. It reminded me in what's the second episode 2? What's episode 2 called?
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones. Yeah, in Star Wars, when they're all like sitting around in their the little chairs talking, like Yoda. And
the Jedi Council.
Yeah, the Jedi Council. It's like the Jedi Council, but for old bio mech people. So like all these old guys have little mech things on their back and stuff. What were we gonna say,
Okay,
John?
I like it. Yeah. No, I like that. I was just saying they all but they all plug in. They all like sit down
Yeah,
and
they
they're like,
jack
okay,
into the
but also we're gonna
Matrix.
plug in. Yeah.
Yeah, and they jack into. I think I want to say I don't know why they would need to talk on this thing, but they're talking to each other like telepathically, or I guess maybe they are linked now. They're neural linked into this computer in the middle of the room. So, but we find out that they're like we said, like they're like the evil Jedi council,
The secret ruling class,
secret ruling
perhaps.
class. Yeah, basically,
The deep
um,
state.
the deep the deep state exactly. Um, who are also made of old white men or just old men. I can't. They're probably not white in this. Probably Japanese, but the old
But
men.
old men.
Yeah. But we see like a little bit of their machinations where they're talking to each other in this cyber world, and basically they're saying like the human race is not stable. There are these things called bioroids that are human machine hybrids, but like they're more machine than human. And apparently, like 80 or 70 or 80% of the people that live in Olympus are bioroids. So like if you're a human, you're in the minority. When I say human, I mean like natural born human or whatever.
Yeah. Like full humanoid. No genetic enhancements.
Yeah, so like Duenan is one of like a regular human. So that kind of made me think that maybe that's why they're looking for her. She has something like that's why they sent Hitomi over there in the beginning, is like maybe she's some kind of key to something, but they don't really go into why exactly they were looking, that why they sent Hitomi there to find them. But they are definitely saying like we need like the new evolution or the next evolution is what we need to promote. So like get away from humans, as like humans were to monkeys, where like monkeys like evolved and then we like killed the, or we made the monkeys subservient to us. That is what humans need to become to bioroids. So um, they are of that mind. They're trying to get rid of humans or basic humans. They're trying to make a better human. They're basically what is that called? Eugenics. They're like pro eugenics, but only like in the way that they're trying to like make a better human with electronics and cybernetics and stuff. So, yeah, then that's what we get introduced to them in that chapter. Then we cut back to Duenan, and she is hanging out with Hitomi and this new girl named Chiffon, and they're just talking about, I guess what Duenan is gonna be like her job wise, and basically she just ends up applying to be like a SWAT member, correct? Like she just is like, I'm gonna be a cop.
Yeah, she can. I guess that's what she did back in the day, and but now I guess she's gonna try for the one here, which is they have like it's E-SWAT, it's extra special weapons and tactical.
Yes, and as part of that, I guess she wants to have, even though I think the like SWAT team provides their own mech suit or whatever. At least all the other officers have their own mech suit. Later on, she's like, or not Hitomi, I'm sorry, Duenan is like, I want that one that I was eyeing, the one that like Yoshi was showing off at the the mechanic shop or whatever, and so she somehow is able to buy that. I don't know how. The only thing I could think, and tell me if I'm wrong here, John, is these chapters, in between the chapters, there's just time that is not really spoken about. So like the chapter we just exited with the old men talking about like, oh yes, humans are outdated, cut like a month later, and now we're with Hitomi and Duenan and Chiffon. Is that correct, do you think? Because maybe she's part of the police force already, and she's like, I don't like their mech suits, I want my own, I'm going to afford it with my salary.
That's the only thing I can think of. She's wearing, like I said, different clothes at this point. Um, she, she acts like, she's already known Chiffon a little bit. I think it says like 2 months ago. Yeah, 2 months ago, Chiffon here was saying exactly the same thing.
Oh, okay.
So
So I
maybe
didn't pick up that like there were months in between these chapters. I thought it was literally like the next day. Like I was like, wow, they really move fast in this thing.
where'd she get that money?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I guess they're just gonna like, because I'm so used to like American comics, like old school ones. Because in the old school comics, they would just like breeze over shit like that. Like, kids are reading this. They don't give a fuck where that money came from. Just that they can now buy this thing or whatever. So it's not weird to me to like have a inconsistency in the plot like that. If we're thinking like this is from the 80s, right? We didn't say this, but this comic is from 1985. So it's like, okay, it's an older comic. So I'm thinking like, oh, maybe they just like breeze over the fact of how she made money. And they're just going to be like, she got a loan. You know, banks give out money, right? So it's as simple as that. So I kind of liked that. But in the talking, like basically after Chiffon after we're introduced to Chiffon and, Hitomi and her talk with Duenan for a while, Duenan goes to her job. I'm sorry, not Duenan. Hitomi goes to her job, and Chiffon and Duenan hang out for a bit. And they have this conversation that I liked because it's very much like, okay, it makes sense because Duenan's like, so we're in like a utopia, right? So like, why is there a police force? And why do they need like heavy weaponry and shit? And this was the first sense I got that this book is heavily borrowed from the movie Demolition, or this book is borrowed from for the movie Demolition Man. So I don't know if it actually is or not, but there's a very common thread here where there's like this weird elite ruling class in this utopia, and then there's like they're like everything's perfect, but then they have actually they don't have guns and shit, but it'd be like if they had a secret police or something that had guns and weapons and mech suits for some reason. We don't know why, but then it's because there's like this underground rebel fighters fighting for freedom for real that they are fighting secretly. So it kind of reminded me of that because like if you remember in Demolition Man, you've seen Demolition Man, right, John?
Yeah, it's been a while,
But yeah, well, you got Dennis Leary's people that live underground, and they'll do really bad stuff like go up top and graffiti shit, or say the word fuck or whatever, like which is considered bad in that society. But like, yeah, that's like a watered down version of this. At least I was putting those connections together in my head. I thought it was funny. I'm like, so it's like Demolition Man. That's basically what we're talking. Both like mech suits and more violent and way cooler. So, and no Wesley Snipes. I guess that's the only thing they're missing is some like crazy super bad guy. Maybe that happens later on. Maybe like the humans get insane or like have some crazy leader that they follow. I'd be down for that. I kind of want to. I definitely want to read that later on if that's the case. But yeah, so Duenan is talking to Chiffon about it's weird how they have this police force that's so well militarized and like supplied with military arms and stuff, but the place is so peaceful and it's a utopia. And so she thinks that's weird, of course. But they just, I don't know, they just give up on that. And then we have like, we cut to a nice day, or the rest of the day, I guess, where Duenan is hanging out with Briareos, just walking around, I guess on their, I don't know if they're like hanging out before they go to their job, but they're hanging out and then they end up at the police station to clock in for their day or whatever. I don't know what shift they are, but it seemed like it was like in the middle of the day, and now maybe they're like third shift or something, so they're going at night. We don't know. But yeah, so now they work for the police. That's kind of just assumed here. And then we cut to like later that night as Briareos is at the house waiting for Duenan to come home, and he's like, where the hell did she go? And then she appears out of nowhere. I assume, I don't know if this is what you got, but it seemed like either there's some kind of camouflage on this mech suit that she bought, or it's like very stealthy, even though it's very bulky.
I think there's camouflage because she mentioned the wanting to have camouflage before too.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, so like this is kind of like the bare bones version of like the Ghost in the Shell camouflage, right? Like the fiber optic camouflage that they had in Ghost in the Shell. Um, but yeah, like she just appears out of nowhere, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then surprises him, and she's like, "Look at the mech I bought," and he's like, "How the hell did you afford that?" And she's like, "I got it on credit. Don't worry, it's fine." And so yeah, this chapter was basically like her just trying to get, or showing how she got like this badass mech suit, and yeah, so otherwise, there's nothing really that happens too much in this other than Hitomi. Is this the one where is this the chapter where we find out Hitomi is? They find out that she works for the government or something. Like she's not betrayed them, but she hasn't been honest with them. So they leave her house and they sleep somewhere else. Is that right?
Uh, that yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happens because they get a call on the phone and like Briareos answers it, and then it was like, oh, that was weird. Like something was revealed there, and then either that or just Briareos and Duenan get in a fight, and then they leave, or at least Duenan leaves and goes to like stay at Chiffon's house.
I think that's honestly because Briareos is like feeling a lot more skeptical about the situation and the city than Duenan is because
Yeah, Dunan's going with the flow.
yeah, and he's like, I don't think you should have got that. I feel like that thing's more of a weapon than like a deterrent or a protectant. And I think like something bad is gonna happen
He's
because
for mech control, and she is against mech control.
yeah. And he's also talking about like even though they're like in the city, he said there's something about like a crisis area that he feels like they're in, like with like that's old terminology. He's like, hey, like I don't feel like this is right. Like this is like, do you remember back in the day? Like this is a CA. And she's like, I don't know about that. And he's like, I think so. I think I think you're too laid back right now and not seeing like the pieces come together.
Yeah, and that makes her mad, so she leaves to go stay at Chiffon's instead of at Hitomi's where Briareos is. And while she's at Chiffon's sleeping, she wakes up, and I think because she hears something, and then she looks around and Chiffon is not there, and then she goes outside and she sees Chiffon working on a bunch of mechs with other guys. We don't know who they are, but they look pretty militarized. They all have guns in their mechs and everything, so they go on the move, and basically, as they're about to leave, we see Briareos is coming up the stairs, I guess maybe to apologize to Duenan, and I guess they get surprised by him, and he's also in the police, so they're like, oh fuck, we found out, and so they just shoot him, and they hit him pretty good. They get him right in the neck or something. They hit an artery, they say. So because he's bleeding all over, and I'm like, wait, an artery? Is he a robot or not? God damn it! So maybe they have.
So there was one little flashback scene when they were like first going to the city, but it wasn't very easy to tell if the person that because she was talking to Briareos in that, and then you see someone in a panel on that, and it's a human, but I don't know if it was supposed to be if that's the person like she would because it was like a police training thing.
Okay.
And I don't know if they were saying that was supposed to be Briareos, and now he is just like a cyborg, more machine than man. And maybe we'll learn that something happened to him that created this, or
right, yeah.
if that just was someone else that was there, and she happened to be talking to Briareos and got distracted, and that's why she failed the whatever thing that she was going through. Because then she woke up, and then we don't get a resolution, and we never get back to that in the entire rest of time.
Not in this one, not in volume 1 at least. Yeah, that's like they don't really go into their relationship too much, although they obviously have some kind of relationship, maybe even romantic, because we'll get there at the end, but there's a little thing at the end where it's like, oh, maybe they were romantic in some point, or they're falling for each other or something. But yeah, so obviously Dunan's like, fuck those guys, and so they run away, and she gets in her mech and it's like, I'm getting revenge on them. And so this is like the main action in the comic, besides, or in this volume, besides the opening scene of like the tank and everybody that was chasing Hitomi. This is like the big fight scene. Now, John, were you able to follow who the fuck is who in this?
So not once there were multiple mechs and then they were start fighting and stuff,
Yeah.
because also the mechs become like smaller on the page because they're trying to show like the scale. But then it's like, well, they all look the same to me.
Yeah, they all look like mech suits. That's
Yeah,
it.
they're not, because it's black and white and because they are all similar enough. Like I did not quite pick that. I get that they're there. They want so they're trying to get to the supercomputer that the council people use.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's where they jack into the Matrix or something. It's
Yeah.
like part of that.
But then yeah, like once they get some information and go to it or whatnot, and then they get there.
Yeah, they actually like torture some higher up guy. They go to his house and like show us, like tell us where the CPU is, and then they like shoot him and shit, and then they shoot at him, and he gets scared and he tells them, but then he immediately is like, they leave and don't kill him, and then he immediately calls and is like, yeah, they're headed to the supercomputer, so definitely
be there when they show
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is stupid of them. I was like, Jesus, what kind of terrorists are these guys? Dumb ones. That's who, or that's what they are. But yeah, so they get to the supercomputer. And they're like, oh, wow, that was easy to get into this room. No one's guarding it. And then as they're like about to shoot it and blow it up, the police open up. Now, some of the mechs from the police say police on them. But while they're like moving around, that word is like either blurred or is not drawn on their mech suits. So
Yeah,
it is.
let's say it says police on them, but it's not like it would be written across the back like a football player, or it's like basically the size of like a larger name badge on the thing on the front of it. And then but so then once they start fighting and running and there's explosions and stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I guess those guys are shooting those guys, and that's all I know. But yeah, I couldn't follow who was who.
The only time is when it's a close up and it's like there's like the air police too.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the copters are definitely police. They're not mech suits. They're just police copters. Okay, we got that. So, yeah. But one thing I liked and I thought was kind of interesting is like they do let them, like in this fight, the CPU does get blown up, and Athena, who's with the police like on site, she's like, "Don't worry, like we downloaded everything that we needed from it, so like who gives a shit?" Like basically, she's like, "It's on the cloud, so like we don't need this." Like, like it was just to make them feel good about themselves, I guess, and like they let the terrorists blow it up, and they're like, "We don't give a shit." So it's backed up. It's backed up on the other hard drive. So I thought that was kind of funny. I'm like, so everything they're doing is literally for nothing. They're just gonna die. But yeah. So we have this big, fight scene between all the police and then Duenan is obviously trying to find the guys that shot at Briareos. So she's onto them as well, and but it's weird because like she's part of the police, so she's technically the bad guys because the police are working for the government, who we know as the reader is bad, and then the terrorists are actually like freedom fighters who are good. So it's kind of like an interesting mix of, or like a weird, like, who are we supposed to be rooting for? Who do we want to win this battle? I don't know. I mean, obviously we want her to win. We want Duenan to not die, but
yeah, I'm sure she'll figure it out. That's, that's kind of they want that to be the case. Cause I mean, we already got to, Briareos is like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't like this one bit.
That's true. And you'll like, I'm sure in the later volumes we do get to like, maybe these guys aren't good and we should fight against them, but they don't get there yet in this. So, but we do get some really cool scenes of Duenan murking some terrorists. So like there's one where like she's hiding behind a wall and this guy comes out from an alley, and then like he slowly peeks out and he thinks that she's going to be at eye height with him, and she like knows that or like anticipates that. So she like goes down and then punches up, and like, I guess her bullets were not penetrating the armor earlier. So she like punches her gun through the face shield of the guy's mech and then shoots inside of it. And I was like, that's pretty fucking sick. Like that would have been awesome to see like animated or whatever, like in the movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty sick. I was like, that's fucking awesome. Just like punch through the glass, like dodge this. It's basically like Trinity when she's like, dodge this to
Oh
the
yeah.
agent. You know, it's this is very much like, okay, I could see some of the Matrix in this for sure. Not saying they ripped off anything, but maybe they ripped off some stuff. Just
They
saying.
what they it was influenced by. It was
Yeah, I mean, obviously influenced by. I mean, there's lots of things they were influenced by, but like they did read comics, and I'm pretty sure that the Wachowskis were into, manga and stuff. At least from what I can see. I mean, they did that whole like Animatrix,
yeah.
right? That's all like anime style Matrix. So I think they were into this stuff, and if you were into it, you definitely read Ghost in the Shell and saw Ghost in the Shell, and if you went down that rabbit hole, you would definitely read Appleseed. So,
Yeah.
it's not too far away. Also, like, think about it, like we're talking about bioroids taking over the human race and subjecting them. So it's like, okay, yeah, there's a bit of the Matrix in this story. So not that they I'm not saying that they like copyright or plagiarize anything, but like,
There and I mean, there's definitely not mechs in the Matrix either that they have to fend off against.
Not at all. There's no mechs whatsoever in the real world that chase them, and they're like squid monsters and stuff. There's none of that. So, yeah. So anyway, there's this big ass awesome fight, and the coolest moment was the gun through the face shield and then shooting the guy inside the mech. That was pretty badass. So,
yeah.
But the big like reveal at the end of this is finally Duenan corners the last terrorist, and then as she's about to fire, we see the chest open where the driver's inside, and we see Chiffon appear, and she's like, no, wait, we were, and then you just see, I guess you hear like boom, but it's in Japanese, so I assume that's what it's saying. And then you just see a shell casing fly. So she didn't give a shit. She just fucking wasted Chiffon, just blew her head off, and that was it. And then like the police, the SWAT team that I guess because Duenan is in her own like mech and not a official police SWAT mech, they're like they all roll up on her and they're like, drop your weapon, but like they're like, oh, it's you, okay, well we need to make sure you're like everything's okay going on with you, like why were you here and why were you in this without your mech suit from us. But yeah, it was basically like she saved the day and was able to get revenge on the people that shot Briareos. And then and yeah, so like the government ended up winning at the end, because we do see like Athena show up and they arrest like a couple of the guys in mech suits, the terrorists that were still alive. And yeah, and then basically later on we see Athena she's talking to the Elder Council, and she's like, oh, we're going to keep these guinea pigs, which is what she calls Briareos and Duenan. She's like, we're going to keep them under surveillance, and just make sure we don't know why they're actually keeping them under surveillance. Once again, they wanted them for some reason. That's why they sent Hitomi there, to get them in the Badlands. But we don't really know what their end goal is.
No, not yet. We know that they want to replace everyone basically with bioroids. Yeah. But I mean, from there we're like, okay, they also want to fix the main computer, Gaia. And
yeah, that's right. Gaia is the name of the main computer. Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, now we need to like keep an eye on them. We have to keep we really need Hitomi's people to like keep an eye on them. And so yeah, I don't know.
Right, because they still live with Hitomi. I assume while they're like after they get out, like, because Briareos is in the hospital right now, but I'm sure like Duenan still lives with Hitomi, because I think like they found out that Hitomi was like part bioroid, actually. That's like what she was keeping from them. There's something as like a secret, and so but like it didn't seem like she gave a fuck. Like Duenan was like, oh, whatever, I don't care what she is. It's fine. But in the very end of the book, we see Duenan is in the hospital visiting Briareos, who is alive. He's just got all these tubes hooked up to him. Um, and then this is why I was saying, like, we get a little bit like maybe they had a bit of a relationship before, or maybe they're developing some kind of romantic relationship, because she bends down and she kisses him on the bed. But then it was funny because as she like walks away, I don't know why. It looks like she gets mad after she kisses him, but then he's like, she wants him to, or I guess she leaves lipstick on his face, like where his lips would be, is her lips, and it's all red, and so she gets mad that he wants her to like wipe it off or whatever. I guess is like the last joke. It's like the last joke.
Wash it on yourself.
Yeah, but there's definitely like, I mean, it could just be like a platonic like kiss, but it could also be a romantic thing later on. I don't know. She obviously does care about him.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I said, we don't know what the extent of their partnership was yet. We don't know if it was just police work, if it was more than police work. And we don't know what happened to him. If he is just he has always been a cyborg, or did something happen that made him a full like a cyborg like this? So
right. So it does end there. It ends like with, the government seemingly being still ahead of things, and they're the ones doing these background machinations and plotting, the takeover of the human race by these bioroids. And as of yet, Briareos is a little, he's suspicious, but he's not. They haven't figured anything out yet. And Duenan is, she's a little bit more oblivious, but she's starting to think maybe there is something there. So that's where we leave it. So John, what would you give it, and what did you think?
I like this one a lot. Like you said, this one I felt like I was much more easily jumping into the story and understanding it a little more than
Ghost in the Shell.
Than Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, exactly.
Although we haven't read, like, it would almost be like if we read to like compare the two, you'd have to read all 5 volumes of this Promethean saga or whatever. So maybe it does get all complex later on, but this first volume was not as complex as the whole volume of Ghost in the Shell that we read. So
that's true. This was easier to digest, at least on the outlook of it. Like all the appendices, there wasn't too many to them that, if there was something that they made up or something they were referencing. And maybe again, that was also because like we had a little bit more of a world building in this, to where like we were walking with the character and learning with the character.
Yeah.
Instead of, like you said already, like the character already kind of knows everything that's going on, and so we're just kind of thrown into the middle of it.
Right. They're just saying the slang words, and we're like, wait, what? Instead of like being explained the slang words.
So I like this a little more. I will say I thought that this was kind of funny because I didn't even have this recollection until after we finished reading. I was like, wait a minute, why was it called Appleseed?
Yeah.
I mean, I get like there's probably a connotation with, okay, there was a nuclear war, so maybe like,
the rebirth of man, like
exactly,
like tree grows from an apple. Maybe, and I might be, I might have got some stuff spoiled because I was trying to watch the anime to see how names were pronounced, so it didn't sound stupid. And I did see like one of the movies had like, it was talking about like, genetically, all these bioroids are like genetically modified beings. And I think they even say that in this, like bioroids they have more than one. They're like clones that have more than one mother or something.
Yeah, like they have multiple DNA.
Yeah, they have multiple DNAs on top of the cybernetics and stuff that are with them. And so, and maybe some of them even aren't even cybernetically enhanced or anything, but it made it sound like they were. And so like maybe it's like a new birth of man, as in, if you think about it, like the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge, that was supposedly an apple, and there was a seed. You could extrapolate maybe why it's called Appleseed based on that.
Sure, that's kind of where we kind of landed towards. But I thought that was interesting because a lot of the times that's usually something that you get in the first part of your reading or in the first part of the movie, is like, oh, that's it's, they said the name of the movie, they said the name of the book, or whatever.
They said it. Yeah, no, I didn't expect. I mean, just from the book itself, it's very like technologically advanced, like and based. So I was like, oh, Appleseed might, I don't know why it's called that. Maybe there's a mech called an Appleseed later or something. I didn't know. So I was like,
The
who
ultimate
knows?
top of the line.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's easier to pronounce than Googies.
Googies.
Googies. Googes. All right.
Googes.
So anyway, what would you give it, John?
Yeah, so I liked it a lot. The art is, like you said, fantastic.
Top notch. Top notch.
Yeah, and the only time I really had any issues when the first part started about when it was just the main character, like you could tell hers, because hers does have that
Yeah,
similar
hers
look,
looks
and
different.
it was usually
Yeah.
And usually it was her chasing after
her
someone.
Googes looks very different than everybody else's.
Yeah. But then when it was like the police fighting with the terrorists or the freedom fighters, it was like, well, wait a minute. Where am I? Who's shooting who now?
Yeah. At that point, I was just like, oh, people are shooting people and they'll tell me who wins this battle,
Yeah. There's a little bit of Michael Bay explosions in the middle there.
Yeah.
But overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it an 8. It was solid.
Ooh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. I was very intrigued to continue reading this. So
yes.
I think an 8 is a very solid, especially for a first volume of manga. Now, as you know, John, as we both know, first volumes of manga are very hard, at least for me, to get, to snag me, to make me want to read the next volume. That's been like a constant problem with even my favorite manga of all time, Berserk. The first couple volumes, I was like, I don't see why anybody gives a shit about this. And then like after the fifth volume, I was like, I fucking love this thing. So it took 5 volumes for that one. And the only reason I did that was because my brother, who I trust very much in choosing good, media, was like, you have to read this. It's fucking awesome. So I continued to push through even when I would have stopped. And then we read Attack on Titan, and same thing. I was like, there's some cool stuff in this, but I don't quite understand why everybody's talking about this like it's the best thing ever. And I think that, they just don't do a good job of grabbing me in that first volume.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, comics in 22 to like 32 pages have to, especially on an initial one, right? Or something new. They're really gotta throw something in there to make you snag and want to keep reading. But for, I would say, about half of the manga we've read, I kind of feel similar. Like, there hasn't been too many. I was like, there wasn't enough there for me to keep going, or it was too, it was like, So I thought this was very, very well read for me and easy to get into comparatively. And I definitely would want to continue this one as opposed to Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, and the nice thing is there's definitely a limited amount of volumes of this. So you're not looking at 41 plus volumes like Berserk or something that is still ongoing, or, other ones that are like, 40, 50, or like One Piece is like over 100 volumes or something.
Yeah.
Like, this is, I think, 5 or 6. And then there's like another series that is after it that's like 2 or 3. So I don't think it's too big if you were going to continue reading it.
Yeah, the only other ones that hit me really good for the manga we've read so far are all the Junji Ito stuff, and that's because those are
meant to be like
self-contained,
single, self-contained things.
And then I really did enjoy Alita.
Yeah, Alita was great, but that's once again 5 volumes, so they kind of, it's like if they know like how long it's going to be, they kind of like get to the point quicker or something, as opposed to like some of those ones they just kind of put it out, and as people start to like it and grow the audience, then they're like, oh, we need to like really get amped up with this story. So then they start making the story more like cliffhangery or like big reveals and stuff. And I don't know how much of that they planned originally. Whereas, sorry, go.
No, I was just saying that makes me wonder for like things that I like, that because I saw them in anime first, like Dragon Ball, because I know like there's quite a few.
I think it definitely helps.
Yeah. So like I wonder, like if I had started or tried to read Dragon Ball first, because I know that there's quite a few of those.
Well, actually, Dragon Ball gets to the point pretty quick. Like Dragon Ball is a like fun manga, so it's like it starts off and it's like, here's the premise, let's find Dragon Balls, that's fun. Oh, look, a tournament. Oh, look, a bad guy. Oh, look, another tournament. Like it's pretty snappy with its plot, with what it is.
Okay.
So I think that one holds up as far because I read all of Dragon Ball and I read most of Dragon Ball Z. I think I stopped. I took a break right before the Cell Saga.
Okay.
So I read mostly all the way through like the beginning of Cell and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, this is like exactly what I remember from the anime show minus all the filler. And because for sure the manga is all not filler. It's none of that. There's none of those Bulma episodes where she's fucking in a lake under the water looking for a Dragon Ball and fighting a fish or whatever. You know, like there's none of that bullshit's going on.
Are you saying it doesn't take 4 volumes of the manga to have power up to fight Frieza?
No, it does not. In 5 manga volumes, Frieza or Namek will explode, and it's like next time on Dragon Ball Z. So anyway, you gave it an 8. I gave it an 8. That's a pretty awesome manga. That was a good suggestion by Kalia, our patron. And speaking of patrons, we'd like to thank you guys so much. Otaku Mike, Christian, Matthew, Kyla, Joseph, and Kalia. You guys are awesome. Oh, also Hoku. Yeah, don't forget Hoku. And you guys are awesome, and you guys keep the lights on in this place. You keep us motivated because, you know, podcasting is definitely a labor of love. You know, like if you're not having fun doing it, it can kind of feel like a slog sometimes. And I feel like, you know, the patrons interacting and, you know, giving suggestions and voting and stuff and commenting on things really helps, you know, keep the motivation to keep it going. So we thank you very much. And if you would like to become a patron, you can do that at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And as part of that, we do our second podcast of the month that's free is voted on by the patrons. And for March Madness, March Manga Madness, John, what are the ones we're voting on this month?
For March Manga Madness, we're doing 4 that we have not done on the podcast yet. We've got One Piece, Death Note, Demon Slayer, and Claymore.
Yeah. So I have read Claymore up to like volume 10, I think.
Oh, dang.
And then there's like 26 volumes of that. I'm a fan. I like it. But so I kind of wanted to see what you thought of it if that does win. But the other ones I have not read any of. I just have heard of them. Obviously One Piece is super popular right now. It's got like a Netflix show and everything that's either being made or already came out. I'm not sure. And then Demon Slayer, of course, hugely popular. There was like a movie that just came out in theaters for it. And Death Note, that's something from my high school days that all my fucking manga anime friends would not shut up about. So so I figured we'd throw that on there for the old school 2000s crowd. So.
I feel like that was one of the first ones I ever saw in like a Hot Topic.
Oh yeah, that you got Vampire Hunter D, all those stuff. So.
Yeah, there you go. Vampire Hunter D and Death Note was like, oh, what is that?
Hell yeah,
that's
so.
that whatever that main. I don't know the names of him, but that main creepy character.
Oh yeah, I have no idea either. Well, maybe we'll find out if the patrons vote on it. So if you guys would like to vote on that, you can become a patron at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And then we also have our exclusive that I would like to throw out there. We're doing, much like we did last year, where we had like a 3-part thing for The Watchmen. We're doing a very big 3-part series for Berserk that's going to start this month and continue into April and May. So I'm very excited about this because we're going to read the entire Golden Age arc, including the Black Swordsman beginning stuff. So we're going to start from volume 1 and go to volume 13, I think is what the Golden Age ends at. So
oh my goodness.
we're doing a chunk of 5 for the first volume or the first podcast for this month for the exclusive. We're going to do the first 5 volumes. Then we're going to April is the next 5 volumes. And then May is the last 3 volumes, which deserve their own, like long thing because it gets intense in the end. So
all I can say is Matt has not shut up about this Berserk. I'm kidding. I just know he's been so excited about Berserk and he's been wanting me to read it for so long. And especially now that he's like, he tiptoed me into some anime or some manga. And like, cause I had read a little bit in high school, but I never like sat down and really read some. So like getting into it more now and like being like, oh yeah, this is another great graphic novel. Like, I don't know why I wasn't reading more of this. Matter of fact, some of them actually read really fast and are, even though it's like 200 some pages. I was like, oh, I just read that in like a half an hour. Awesome.
Quick, yeah.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to it. I know this one is crazy popular. I always see there's like some new deluxe hardbound edition that comes out because it's,
there's
I
14
get a
of
feed
them.
for, yeah. So
I need to get 7 more. I have 1 through 7. They're $50 each of those, so it's quite they're expensive. But my goal is to build a special bookshelf just for them to hold.
Patrons for just $2 a month. You can help this
You sound like a televangelist.
Comic book collector. Yeah, this poor comic book collector be able to complete his entire Berserk collection.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, so we're doing that. I'm very excited. Berserk has become my favorite fantasy property. Down, like, full stop. Like, Lord of the Rings, I love it. Not Berserk. Game of Thrones, I love it. Not Berserk. I am a fan. Conan, I love it. Not Berserk.
Over Swamp Thing?
Well, that's not a fantasy property.
It's not. Okay, I guess it's.
I'm talking about like fantasy properties, like that's just straight comic book superhero stuff.
So any kind of like knights or
yeah, I'm talking about fantasy.
Our definitions of that are
God damn it! Look, magic, and you can't have a lightsaber with magic. All right, there's no. It's what was it? What was that line from Party Down? You can't have. You can't have dragons and something I can't remember what it was when he was talking about the difference between hard sci-fi and hard fantasy. Anyway,
Martin Starr's character, yes.
Anyway, so Berserk is I think it's my favorite. It has taken the place of Lord of the Rings as my favorite fantasy property. And that's probably just because it was still coming out for 30 years. Lord of the Rings was just Lord of the Rings as released, like 90 years ago or whatever it was. So like, it's kind of like, it is what it is, but the evolution over the 30 years of being put out, because I think Berserk started in 88. So like, and has continued until he died. It's still continuing, but the creator died like last year or the year before that. So, he did one a month, I believe, or around that for 30 plus years or whatever. So, or almost 30 years. So, yeah, it's a big epic series and I fucking love it. So, and the Golden Age arc is, I think everybody knows and says, but it is the best arc ever. And then the series just continues that. Like it gets to the best arc ever and then it holds that for the rest of the series. So, I'm, as you can tell, very excited and in love with the series. So I can't wait to talk about it with you and our patrons, of course, on the exclusive. So once again, if you would like to hear our thoughts on Berserk, of which I'm very excited about to give you, go to patreon.com/planestrains and comic books and sign up there. And with that, we will see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.